Donald Trump, what is he? Is he a narcissist, a sociopath, a psychopath? All of those things? None of them?
I don't think that he's a psychopath because he's been successful in repeated enterprises over long periods of time, and he has a variety of people who remain intensely loyal to him. Now, he's definitely extroverted to a very great degree, and he's definitely disagreeable. And so that gives him some of the traits that are associated with those personality features. But from what I've been able to understand, he's also very conscientious and hardworking, for example. And so that's a real mitigating factor. And so I think it's very easy to demonize someone that you don't approve of, let's say, and certainly Trump has been subject, I would say, to more demonization than any political leader in the West that I can remember in my entire lifetime, including Richard Nixon. And so that's also set him back on his heels and made him somewhat embattled and defensive, which I don't think did any great things for his personality in some real sense. So I think it's a mistake to assume that Trump is a psychopath. I think it's a big mistake. I think it's a big mistake to assume that Putin is a psychopath. It's easy to do that, but I don't think the evidence suggests that. You don't want to throw those labels around casually. And, you know, if Trump was psychopathic, well, he did a pretty good job of keeping the United States clear of war for 4 years. That's pretty damn remarkable. And he did have a big hand in promoting the Abraham Peace Accords, and that was pretty remarkable. And those aren't the sorts of things that you would expect from a psychopath. He also seems to have a pretty good hand with the working class. So I don't think it's those are reasonable diagnostic labels to.
You're sounding like I wouldn't say
place on someone.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you sound like you're a bit of a fan of Donald Trump. Would you like him to run again? Would it be good for America, do you think?
No, I don't think it would be good for America. Would it be good for him to run? That's a difficult question, because it might be that it would be good for America to have whether or not Donald Trump should be president sorted out in the public sphere, debated intensely, and subject to an election. So it might be very interesting to see him put himself forward on the Republican ticket. If I had my druthers, and I say this, I hope with due care, I would rather see someone like DeSantis step forward, who shares some of that forthright strength, let's say, that characterizes Trump at his best, but seems to be a more cautious administrator and a less divisive figure. I think that would be better, because Trump, for whatever virtues he might have, and I think he has the virtues of a Washington outsider, I think that's quite clear. I think that his behavior in the political realm raises the political temperature to a dangerous degree.
Yeah.
And, I say that while trying to give the devil his due and not casting careless aspersions on his name.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So to review, he's praising Trump's record. He has problems with his personality, but he's praising his record as president. He kept us out of war. He had a pretty good hand with the working class. Which is a fascinating way to put it. But ultimately, Peterson is a moderate kind of guy. We don't need the divisiveness of Trump. He would be happy to settle for Ron DeSantis.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Jordan Peterson sleep through part of Trump's presidency?
Yeah, I would also like to sit there and say that launching a coup that kills several people and characterizing that as a man who's disagreeable but not psychopathic is really quite something to swallow, right? And I can appreciate being cautious about applying diagnostic labels to people. I don't think that we should do that. Sure. But he doesn't exactly seem to really care all that much, since if you scroll through his Twitter feed, pretty much every day he takes a pot shot at Justin Trudeau, characterizing him as a narcissist, or talking about, and this is my quote, the pathetic, cringing, totalitarian cowards at the Globe and Mail. So he doesn't really seem to be that concerned about directing all kinds of psychological and physiological language at a huge number of people that he doesn't happen to care for. I guess Donald Trump, just like in everything else in his life, has to be treated with like he's a special guy, you know?
Yeah, I should say, just to be the pedant here who like actually talk about some of these specific policy claims. Like, okay, the no war thing is just bizarre to me, because were there any like new full-scale wars that were started during those 4 years? No, there also weren't any that were started during the previous 4 years. And the second term of Obama either. I mean, like it's not like we actually started a new major war every 4 years. But if you want to look at Trump's foreign policy overall, you'd have to include, I don't know, doubling the rate of drone strikes in Yemen. You'd have to talk about backing to the hilt the really genocidal Saudi war effort there, including vetoing the Senate's attempt to cut off U.S. cooperation with the Saudis on that. Even after, by the way, Jamal Khashoggi was cut up with a bone saw, which Trump basically said, yeah, they probably did that, but what are you going to do? That's like a light paraphrase of the statement he put out after that. Also, if we're gonna look at just how much of a dove Trump was, he tore up the Iran nuclear deal and also assassinated General Soleimani.
He reimposed a blockade on Cuba too. Let's not forget that.
Yep, brought the U.S. closer to the brink of war with Iran than we've been since the hostage crisis, and once again tightened up.
I'd also like to point out that Kyle Kulinski pointed out all these things in his debate with Peterson, whose response was, well, I don't really know that much about that, but, I'm just saying he didn't start any like major wars.
And here he is. Kulinski pointed out all this. He recited all of these facts to him. I remember that. You're right. And here's Peterson just saying the same original dumbass claim as if none of this had ever been pointed out to him. And by the way, I love the fact that he's pretended that the Abraham Accords or something. It's like, yeah, okay. Ask a Palestinian how much difference that made to them, and get back to me. So yeah, I think the foreign policy half is totally ludicrous. And then again, in this case, he used really bizarre wording. But when he was talking to Kulinski, he was saying, "Oh, Trump did all this stuff to help the working class," or he showed. What did he say? He said he supported Trump over Hillary in 2016. Obviously as a Canadian, he couldn't vote, but he participated in this like straw poll.
It was funny too, because he tried to talk about how it was that Trump had a better connection with the working class, while also talking about how he was at a Canadian Republican forum at a fancy restaurant where they were serving a whole bunch of different things, and the straw poll took place. And if you've ever been to those events, if you've ever been to the kind of events where you have Republicans in a foreign country meeting to talk about their election, they're not exactly having paths with ribbon and smoking a fucking Marlboro, if you know what I mean. Like, these are pretty country club affairs, right? So
totally right. And he said he surprised himself by voting for Trump over Hillary in the straw poll. And one of the reasons he gave for that is he said Hillary betrayed the working class, which I could get on board with that. But then Kulinski asked him the obvious follow-up question, which is, well, okay, but what about Trump and the working class? And he tries to defend it, and Kulinski makes a bunch of extremely relevant points there too, about, for example, how offshoring, like loss of industrial manufacturing jobs, was actually worse by the end of Trump than it was at the beginning. There was net loss.
Not to mention that gigantic tax cut for the rich that proved to be extremely unpopular, actually.
Yep, he did a gigantic tax cut for the rich. He filled the National Labor Relations Board with hardcore union busters, who, to the point that, like, the thing that I pointed out in the when I did that thing in Compact, that Sorab and one of the other editors did their Case for Trump article, and I did my Case for Bernie article. One of the things I pointed out in my Case for Bernie article is that actually they were so committed to union busting in the Trump administration that James Damore, they actually sided with Google against Damore because woke capital, right? Because they didn't want to undermine the sacred power of employers to fire people. by making them reinstate Damore. So like that's how hardcore they were about this. In fact, you could look at the time, the New York Times, there's an article about this, like literally after Biden had won the election and, Trump was going through the various stages of denial and anger and bargaining and all that about Biden winning, but like surely all of the drones who actually staffed his administration understood perfectly well that they were going to be out in a couple months. They spent those last couple months like energetically shredding labor safety regulations for like long distance truckers and stuff like that. That's how much they cared about the working class. So it's just both of these are bizarre claims, and to his face, Peterson has had Kyle Kulinski explain to him in detail the disconnect between both of these claims and the actual record of the Trump administration. And it's like, well, whatever. Still sounds right to me.
No, absolutely. But I mean, this is again a guy who worries more about woke authoritarianism coming from university campuses and the threat that poses to Western civilization, while at the same time calling Alexander Dugin a real philosopher and having nice things to say about Hungarian soft and liberal authoritarianism, right? So I frankly just don't think that his political evaluations should be taken all that seriously, especially when it comes to addressing little things like a reality principle.
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.